I know anything is possible. As I said, I used to be a Muslim. I was somebody who, I can remember um, people trying to minister to me about Jesus. And I can remember just, I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me about Jesus. He's not the Son of God. I can remember blaspheming Jesus Christ, dismissing, disregarding him, and just believing I knew better because of my practices of Islam and being a Muslim. And then here I am, fast forward today, I would have never thought the Lord would use me in this way. Hallelujah. So I say that to say, even from my testimony, be encouraged. If you're watching this, like I said, if you're believing somebody to be saved, know that, my God, if he can save this girl, this woman, hello somebody, that he can save whoever you believe in God to save. I was very stubborn, very prideful, did not want to hear it. You can't minister to me. I do not want to hear about Christianity. I do not want to hear about the Christian faith. Just a real quick, while we're talking about testimony, and I don't want to make this too long, I wanted to keep it under 15 minutes, but while we're talking about testimony, so at this point in time in my life, this would have, I can't remember, maybe I was in my early 20s or something like that, or maybe 19, 20, 21, 22, something like that, early 20s. And I can remember I, had no longer had my apartment because I was living on my own early. And I ended up moving in with someone, and where I was sleeping, I can remember this one particular night. That was my first time I saw a demon. And keep in mind, I'm a Muslim. I don't know about those spirits and demons and angels and all that stuff. Like, I don't know nothing about that type stuff. And I can remember in the middle of the night, literally saw a demon, and it was moving so fast in that room like a flash of light, right? The Bible even says, beware, because Satan masquerades like an angel of light. So it literally came with a flash of light. But I knew even then, this has to be an evil spirit. And I remember at that time, I was so fearful and afraid. And at that time, I wasn't living with my mom, but I remember calling my mom. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. I remember calling my mom the next day and telling her what I saw, because I knew my mom, she would believe me, right? Because I mean, an evil spirit, like, what, that's not something you want to go telling people. And and again, I knew my mother would believe me, and so she invited me to come live with her for a bit while I got myself together. And while being there in her home, at this point, because we were practicing Islam based on, my mother had us in that faith. But by the time, as an adult, by the time I go to move with my mom for a little bit, she's following Jesus. She's a Christian. She had given her life to Christ and serving him and all of the things. And I remember just being in her home, and she would play messages of different men and women of God, and I would hear the messages throughout the house, her worship music throughout the house. And I can remember one particular time, she's like, "You living in my house, you going to church, right?" And I remember I was so mad, like, why she got me going to church? I do not want to go to no church. But it was like, shoot, I ain't got nowhere else to go, so I got to go in this church building. But I was happy. I was happy in retrospect, looking back, that my mom forced me and gave me an ultimatum: if you're going to be in my house, you're going to church. Because though that was the seed that I needed to get me into the church building, to begin to hear the message being preached and ministered to. And then eventually it would have been that same year that I received salvation. Hallelujah. And so some of y'all parents may need to get a little tough. Come on. But I told my mother recently, I was so grateful that she did that she gave me that tough love in that moment. Like, if you're gonna be in my house, listen, you going to church on this Sunday. And I did, and that's what I needed in order to get me to this point. But so that's how I, in a nutshell, that's how I transitioned from Islam to Christianity. And